Well, if I'm being honest, hello. Good to see you. Welcome to the second Rapid Fire Riffs video. Again, I'm taking riff requests from my Patreon subscribers, and they did not take it easy on me this week. So I have 12 riffs and one question, and that's too much for one video. So I'm going to do the first seven so the 6 riffs and the question that I received in the order I received them, and I'll do the rest in another video, hopefully pretty soon. I am definitely getting to the point in the year where it feels like my brain is dried up and I don't have anything interesting to say about music anymore, so it's been fun. We'll see what comes of this. And yeah, and on the last one of these, someone said, why don't you just wear headphones so you don't get the computer bleed back? And the answer is because I'm doing this janky thing where I'm using the headphone output on the audio interface to feed back into the audio interface so I can get the computer sound, because all the other ways I've tried of doing that with Zoom or with this new SWB thing, which replaced the old Soundflower thing, they all have a lag between if you're recording voice and the computer sound. There's a lag, or they just don't work, and that lag is pretty important if I'm like counting over music or whatever. It's pretty important that it lines up with how I'm hearing it, otherwise it just is nonsense. So yeah. So kicking things off, we have the first track from that one Swedish band who just released a new album. And I know I did a video about them, and apparently I pronounced their name wrong, but I've been working on it. So this is from the first track, Lavender, Haze, from the new album by Vildhjarta. So let's check it out. And the question is specifically about the cymbal modulations. Yeah, let's dive right in. Although I guess I should mention what a month this has been for metal releases this past month and a half. I'll put a little list up on the side of all the ones I've been listening to, but this album has been one of the ones that I've played the most out of all the stuff that's come out just in the past month. So without further ado, here is the section in question. I think that's going to be plenty, just that first little burst. Yeah, this album is really, really, really fun. There's kind of that typical thing for them where they're like at parts, it's just like really rhythmically jagged, but all in this like groove. And then there's also these huge kind of breaks in the or discontinuities in the texture, where you have like chugs and these chords and these harmonics and lots of empty space. Really, really fun to listen to. And of course, tons of tempo changes, which is kind of my thing. But yeah, so in this first part, let's see how I want to get into doing this. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go full transcribe mode. So when I start listening to something like this and I want to transcribe it, I haven't checked if someone else transcribed this, but this shouldn't be crazy hard to get the outline of, so I'm just going to do it and you can see the process. The first thing I will do is try to get whatever is easiest to grab first. So I think what that's going to mean is just counting how many attacks there are at each pitch. So for example, this first pitch thing, so it's or whatever. Each time it changes pitch, I'm going to start counting again. So that first one, there are 5, is it 5 or there's 5, and that last one's a gap, and then there's maybe another one. Oh no, it's 3 and 2. Mama. And that's actually 3 as well. Maybe that's 5. I'm already gonna need to slow this down. See my ears, my brain, nothing is working that well. I'm too busy. Too many things to think about. Then 5. Okay, so it is like that. That's the pitches, which will just help to make this this outline as we go. I'm going to worry about rhythms first, and then if I have not spent way too long on this, I will get the pitches too. But yeah, so let's see. So it's sounds to me like it's 3s and 4s. So each of those attacks is either 3 or 4 16th notes, which I think I'm going to slow it down even more to see. Bum 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 banana banana banana. Okay, so how should I visually represent this? This is already, the top part of this is already a mess. I'll come back to that if I need to. But so now we have a different set of numbers. These numbers mean instead of counting the number of attacks at each pitch, these are going to be counting the number of 16th notes per attack. So we have the fill, and maybe, since I'm doing it on this, I can even do different colors for different pitches. That would be pretty cool. So let's do da-na, na. So then it's 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and then onto another pitch. So this, I'll just try to show how these match up to these. And like whenever you're transcribing or doing this stuff, you just I'm always kind of winging it. I'm coming up with new visual ways of representing this stuff. Yeah, just whatever works. None of this is like a standard type of thing, really. It's borrowing from a couple different concepts. But it's what is making sense to me right now that's going to make it smoothest when I go to actually put this into notes. So there's that, and then we have, or maybe I should even start marking stuff up in here so I can move around more easily. Yeah, so I think what I'm going to do, so you'll see I'm going to be putting in little tick marks up here so I can navigate in transcribe more quickly. I'm going to do a new measure for each time that we get a new pitch, and then just beats for each of the attacks within that. So again, kind of a idiosyncratic way of using this, but okay, so don't want to get too far ahead of myself. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, That's all threes. You have to be careful when you're listening slow, because sometimes you can hear ghosts. 3, 4, 5. So these are that one. I think you hopefully get the point of this. Yeah, all threes. So that's there. And then we're going back to that first pitch. Nice. I've got four colors and four pitches in this thing. And there are more later. You get the lower ones, but deal with that in a sec. Maybe they're all threes. The rhythms, they're all dotted eighth notes from now on, which does some interesting stuff when we start talking about the drums. But let's finish getting the guitars. I don't know if these colors are actually lining up perfectly with the pitches. But that's the basic idea of what the guitars are doing. So when I'm transcribing, I always grab whatever's easiest first. For me, that's normally guitars. And then I figure out how the drums fit around that after I have that in. So let's grab those pitches. Well, there's 2 notes in these chords. So that's the left guitar and the right guitar. Okay, this will be easy enough to just grab both of them, so I'll do it. All right, left first pitch is... So that is the left guitar. Let's do the right hand guitar. That's fun. They do a voice exchange there. They trade what the left and right guitars are playing. So that's bending up to make it even closer to that. So the 2 guitars are a half step apart there, but one of them is bending up to get even closer, make it even more crunchy. All right, let's put this all in here. So when I'm starting to put this in here, I am not putting a time signature because I'm a little less sure about what the best way to notate that will be. It's going to depend on what the drums are doing. So often, and this is a nice thing about Dorico, you can just put X for the time signature, and you can just write as much music into this bar as you want, and then you can put the time signature in that you want after. Okay, C sharp. So this is the top of these will be the left guitar. 3, 4, 5. And then now it's all threes from here on out. Kind of ambiguous. But harmonically, this is kind of weird. Cool. As a wise man once said, that is that. And then the other guitar. So that's that pretty much. Let's get the drums now that we've spent almost an hour on technical difficulties and getting this started. I'm just gonna go 70% speed to try and split the difference between actually being able to hear stuff and not losing sight of the big picture. So the big picture, what's happening is the cymbals are doing that pulse preserving tactus modulation thing. that I talk about in Car Bomb, and it's all over the place. But so they're changing between hitting every 6/16, every 4/16, and maybe some other ones in there too. But it's not very what's kind of tricky about this is that it's not very clear what there's a lot of fills and extra stuff in there, and the cymbals don't actually go for that long. They don't really establish each beat that clearly. So it's changing pretty quickly, and the transitions are pretty blurred. And this, just like talking about this guitar riff before we even get into the drums, this is pretty typical for them. Because it doesn't have a pattern, right? It's not like it's just some shorter repeating thing. There's like one time we get a quarter note and a 16th note at the beginning, and that's enough to kind of throw everything off. Then it's all dotted eighth notes after that. This pitch thing kind of keeps going, but the first time we get 3 at this first, the minor second between C sharp and C, and then next time we get that again, but with spread out differently on the guitars. Then we get 5 times, then we get 3, and then it goes here. If there is a pattern here, I'm not seeing it. The pitches are different in the second half. We have the G sharps here, which we don't have in the first time. So there's all sorts of stuff that's not. It's not systematic in the same way that a lot of metal is, or specifically Meshuggah is. A lot of people got really mad when I said that they were influenced by Meshuggah on my other video, which I guess there are all these like fine distinctions between calling something gent and calling it thal and calling it whatever. But in the big picture, this is all like roughly coming from Meshuggah's brand of stuff. Even if it doesn't really sound anything like Periphery or these other bands that people say are influenced by Meshuggah. Yeah, so it's different, pretty different, very different from Meshuggah in that sense too. Even though timbrally and rhythmically it seems kind of the same. Especially Meshuggah does a lot with this dotted eighth note over against a quarter note type of deal. Like in Bleed and in Clockworks. But but here it's not fit into this systematic thing in nearly the same way, which is what my other video about them is kind of about. But okay, let's actually get some notes in the drums here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm not really hearing a clear like option for what should be the meter in these various parts. I think I'm just gonna do this kind of the messy way where I put everything into this one long measure, and then I'll see if I can see any patterns, and then see if what I see helps me hear something different. So let's just do this one measure at a time, going slow. This is going to take a minute. I'll fast forward this process probably when I post this, but yeah. Or actually, what I can do almost definitely is put kicks on all of these drum hits. That's a pretty safe bet. Even if there are other kick hits in there too, there are going to be at least ones here. Yeah, visually maybe I should just make meters based on the guitar stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna need to just do it like this. So I'm just matching these up with the when the pitches change. And this again is the nice thing about Dorico, is I can do this without, this would be impossible in Guitar Pro, which is one of a few reasons why I like Dorico. So okay, so roughly like that. That's just, this is just visually to help me not get lost. Okay. What? Oh, I got something wrong. that's another thing about transcribing. You're always kind of, every layer you do, you're finding mistakes in the previous layer. So this is a little less weird than I thought it was, because what we have is just, and Dorco really is amazing. If you like actually make use of all of the things it can do, it can be really fast once you get a hang of the thing, which I am still learning. Yeah, already there are things that are just like so simple if you know how to do them, that are very not simple in Sibelius and impossible in Guitar Pro. Yeah, okay, so this measure, I fixed it. Da 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 da. Yeah, so then we have this little like tom fill, and then 2 more kick hits. And the cymbals are following the guitars. Okay, now is when things start to get a little more complicated. So the cymbals start. Get 3, the same thing. Okay, why not? It's doing 3 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3, I think. Or sorry, this one's earlier. Yeah, so 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2. That equals 6. That equals 15. 3 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2. Yeah, not even really hinting at a new tempo. It's just like the accents are just different. They just don't line up with the guitars. I think I'm just gonna get the cymbals. I've already spent more than an hour getting to this point in my filming. So I'm not gonna worry about. I mean, all the kick stuff is changing too. There's the little the like Scotch snaps, the da 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 da. But yeah, the question was about the cymbal, so let's get that, and we'll worry about the rest of this if I ever make a full video about this, which I might. Done all this work already. Oh, that's 5. So 5. So this is the very car bomb thing, the 5 plus 4 in the 9/16. 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 4. Yeah, so that's what the cymbals are doing there. 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 4. While the guitars are going 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. I think that is this. I think that second cymbal hit is landing here on the second guitar attack of this next measure. So it is actually, we just switched to 6s. So this wasn't a 5 because it actually started a 16th note earlier in the other measure. And then that makes more sense. So 6, and then 6 here. Sounds actually there. And then we get another 6 like this. Yeah, let's get the some of the lower hanging fruit too. So it definitely switches. I mean, part of the difficulty is that it's hard to hear cymbal attacks because they're washy, so it's hard to be sure what beat they land on, especially when you slow it down. Like, it's much easier to hear a kick or a snare attack, but it's also pretty fast, and I'm, as I mentioned, my ears and everything are tired, and I'm having trouble getting this at faster speeds. But transcribing is like a puzzle. The more pieces you get, the easier it actually gets to do the rest of it. So I'm going to skip forward a little to this part here where I know that the cymbal frequency changes to being every 4/16 notes. So that's this part. So that's a few measures here, and luckily, since I changed the meters and everything with this, the measure numbers line up. So I can just throw these in here, starting on the second beat of measure 10. And then I think it's only for like a couple beats that it does this. And then it just hits with the guitars again there. And then we've got this little unknown territory in here, which I can revisit. See, it's like it's so hard to hear if that's a new cymbal attack. I mean, they're all different cymbals too. I'm putting them all in the same line of the notation here just for simplicity, because I'm just trying to get the rhythms. Yeah, so there's a difference between, I think, the timekeeping cymbals, which are the ones that are hitting at, every 6 or every 4 16th notes, and then like decoration cymbals that are sometimes hitting also with the guitar attacks, and I think that's what's confusing me, or what's making it hard to hear. And the timekeeping cymbals kind of drop in and out, and they switch to fills on the toms and whatever. But I think this is still essentially this 16th note thing through most of this. Okay, I've solved it. Yeah, it's still just 6s, and I'm building a better picture of what's like going on in this whole section, which can be sometimes hard to see when you're focused in on one 16th note at a time. But here's the answer for your question about what the cymbals are doing. Overall, they're switching back and forth between these different functions. There's the like timekeeping function where they're just hitting isochronous, so equally spaced hits, and that happens first in groups of 3 16th notes, so shadowing the guitar attacks, and then in groups of 6, and then in groups of 4 later. But that's tricky to hear because they're, like I said, they're shading in and out of doing that, and then also just playing fills and playing along with the guitar accents for some of it. And it's tricky to hear because when they're playing 6, so the guitar attacks are moving in groups of 3, so dotted 8th notes, groups of 3 16th notes, and the drums are moving in groups of 6, so dotted quarter notes, 6 16th notes. So they're the same. They should nest with each other nicely, but the drums are playing when they start this thing of 6, they come in from this thing here. So we go 3 3 4 4, and then they start the 6. But the way they do it, it means that the downbeat or when the cymbal hits is on the 3rd 16th note of each of these dotted 8th notes, if that makes sense. So it's same period, same cardinality, so same length as 2 of the guitar attacks, but they're offset from each other by one 16th note. So this cymbal is always hitting a 16th note before the other guitar attacks when it's doing this timekeeping thing. So we start, it's with the guitar attacks, then it kind of does some unpatterned accents for a little bit. So it switches to 4s for a second. That's just enough to make it misaligned. And then we get 6s, a long string of 6s, which continues or gets interrupted for a little bit here and then picks back up, but it's the same thing when it picks back up. So it's a 16th note before the guitar attack. And then over here it switches to 4 16th notes. And then so we get 4 4 4. And then I guess I should probably just call this 4. I don't think it's actually hitting again. And then it lines up again with guitar attacks to end this little section. Let's see how my thing sounds with Dorco. Dorco sound engine. Yeah, not too bad. I mean, I've done all this work on this. I'm probably gonna make an actual video about it. This is a super cool track. What a way to start an album. This is great. So when I do that, I'll flesh all this out. But I have spent 1 hour and 26 minutes getting to this point. So I need to move on. Okay, coming back. Day 2 of filming this stuff. Yesterday I spent my whole time on that one riff. Today I'm going to try to get through 5 more riffs and a question. So we'll see how that goes. The first one is, well, this Patreon patron submitted 2 very kindly, because the first one is from Gyte, which is this black metal band that, if you don't know, you should definitely check out. Kind of the most experimental, cutting edge of blending black metal aesthetics with kind of experimental electronic music and serial music, and all that sort of stuff. The contemporary composition world. And this is a band that I've been into for a while. I really like. The problem is that I don't really have a great idea of how I would approach analyzing this, or I have an idea, but it would take such an unbelievable amount of work that I'm as yet daunted, and it'll probably be a little while before I get into it. And I've said this in interviews I've done, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to interview the person behind this project, because that would make my way in a lot easier. So stay tuned for that sometime in the next few years, which is the time scale of how I how things like this work, academic projects. Yeah. So I thought I would just briefly kind of give an idea of what I mean by the technical difficulties involved with this, then move on to this person's other suggestion, which will be a little more something I can do more with. So the riff in question is from the Harvesting of Runes, which is the second track off of Perdurance, which is the first Gyte album that I listened to. This is from 2016. Yeah, relatively simple for Gyte stuff. It's this repeating melody thing. Here it is. So it's in 5/4. It's this repeating thing. There's this drum, electronic drum thing happening underneath. But the tricky thing is that it is not equal tempered. So this is a tuning system other than the one that splits an octave up into 12 equal parts. And even saying that, I'm not quite sure. I don't know if it's a stable tuning system or if it is just microtonal. So if there's if it's just dividing the octave into 17 tone equal temperament, which is a common-ish way to do this, or whatever other version, or if it's just kind of like ad hoc microtonal stuff. I think in this riff it sounds like it's kind of stable, at least for a while. But yeah, my ear for this stuff is not good enough to be able to tell if it's staying the same across the whole piece, if it's the same like within an album or anything like that. And yeah, so let's just try and notate one round of these things. So I'll just kind of give you a sense for what this would entail. But I'm just going to try to get that much. So, so just like this one measure of 5/4, do 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 do. Now I'm going to try to get the pitches. So what I'm doing, and this is like, there are so many silly little technical things that go into making this difficult. So I've just got regular little tuner, and I'm going to try to match each of these pitches from the melody. So I'm going to slow it down, slow it way the heck down. So here's the first pitch. So that is a C. So this first one is not off the grid that the 12-tone equal temperament grid. And man, it'd be kind of funny if this ends up not being really microtonal. But I think even if it's like uses a lot of the same notes, there are definitely some in-between inflections at least. So that is G, and I think it's like plus a few cents. So I'm going to say plus 10. So we measure pitch relative to 12-tone equal temperament in cents. So there are 100 cents to a semitone. So we can specify how sharp or flat a note is relative to these standardized pitches by saying plus 10 minus whatever. So we go to the closest pitch and then say how many semitones off, or how many cents off from that it is. Yeah, so that one is definitely off the grid. That is a D. So you can hear that's not the same pitch as this, but it's also not the pitch higher. It's in between those two. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say it's D plus 40. And this will get a little messy visually. So that's pitch number 3 out of 9 in this passage. And so this one there's a portamento in it, so it's a smooth bend down. I'm gonna say, I mean, maybe it'll be worth doing this more precisely, but I'm just gonna throw a jazz articulation on this. There we go. It's always a good day when you remember the keyboard shortcuts. So this one is same pitch, that D plus 40 cents. So it's kind of like D, almost D half sharp. So there are symbols for the notes that are 50 cents off. So quarter tones, quarter sharp, quarter flat, 3/4 flat, 3/4 sharp. There are symbols for those, and Dorico can do them. However, I don't think these are actually even lining up with those. I think these are more in between. A plus 20. So you can hear that's a little flatter. That's an actual A versus this. That's back to that normal C. That seems like F plus 10. I'm gonna say that's A sharp plus 20 with a fall. That's like C minus 35. So it's doing a portamento up into that. So that's roughly G sharp. So this is sliding up to here. Okay, so this is like roughly what I would, that's as much as I'm gonna do for this, this riff, at the moment. But yeah, so this is kind of the complication that comes from this is one, figuring out a way to notate it. Or I mean, I guess one is like hearing what the pitches are and deciding if the microtonality matters, if it's a system, whatever. Here it seems like C is stable, or it seems like each of these pitches is stable. But I don't know enough, and I'd have to look quite a bit more to see like if there's some system in this, and if it keeps going for the whole track. But yeah, so pretty complicated, because you can't even just like take the pitches for granted, and then you have to figure out a way to notate it, and then you have to figure out like why it matters and what the how it's working within the piece, and why it's worth talking about. I mean, I think the reason why it's worth talking about is because it sounds cool and it's different. But kind of more specifically, like what is it doing in any one riff? That's the challenge I would set for myself if I were gonna actually talk about this. All right, so Tunnel Jumper, Frontier, another band, very often requested, and one that I'm definitely gonna make a video about. Yes, I love the new album, very cool. Another one of those October albums that I've been listening to a lot. But this is from their earlier album, from Orange Mathematics. Yeah, so Frontier there's kind of two things going on. They're similar to Car Bomb in that part of what makes them sound weird is guitar manipulation stuff. So messing with what a guitar sounds like, digitally, and with pedals and with Axe effects, I think, and all this other stuff to create these really wild timbres. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not like that deep into that side of things. But the other half of their trademark sound is the rhythmic stuff, which is often very strange. And yeah, let's now is as good a time as any to be a little more precise with what I think I'm hearing, because I listen to them a lot. I have some ideas, but let's see if they hold up. So here is the section. So some things will make this easier. I think this is maybe not one of the most challenging Frontier riffs, but that's good. I'm perfectly happy with that, because there's this, it kind of lets us know what the background thing is with this first just guitar. So it's this double Tresillo thing. So Tresillo are these 3 + 3 + 2 patterns. Double Tresillo is 3 + 3 + 3 + 3 + 4. So 1 2 3 ba da da ba da da ba da da ba da 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 ba 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 da da da. Super common in all sorts of pop music, or popular music broadly construed, and including metal. And Stephen Hudson has a cool chapter in his dissertation about these, all the ways these show up, or section of a chapter. Yeah, so we get this pretty clear beat to start. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I'm pretty sure that keeps going when everything else comes in. I mean, I'm sure it does, because the guitar switches an octave higher, and it keeps doing that behind the bam, 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 bam. So that's good. So I can like do some stuff here already, and maybe it's worth it to just grab that first part and put that behind, so we can use that as reference. Down, they're playing. There are several layers here. The effects are kind of weird, but this is roughly what it is. So I'll put that here. E. Dun, dun. Yeah. So this, it's all tremolo picked. There's layers, octaves, higher and lower. So we get this, 4 times. So that's the little intro. And then we get the same thing here, except I think this is 2 octaves up, and that keeps going under here. Okay, so obviously the tricky part is what the chugs are doing. Let's put some tick marks in here so we can get. So I think that's just repeating, and so I'm just going to try to get this much, and maybe it's even the same measure to measure. So it's really close to being da da dun dun da da dun dun da da dun dun da da dun dun dun, or whatever the turnaround is. So following that same an extended version of that tresillo pattern. Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Or I guess it doesn't actually go up here. So roughly that. Let's see what the second measure of this. Yeah, so it's just a little weird, but da 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 da. So we can think about splitting the bar in half. First half is this slightly unusual thing. Da 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 da. And the second half is the more typical tresillo thing. Da da da. So put them together. Da 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 da. Yeah, like that. And I'm pretty sure. Well, so what I noted up here, this is twice fast. So these tick marks are eighth notes, but that just goes again, right? 1 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. Stays the same, right? And that's what the tricky thing is this is all actually happening twice as fast relative to this thing. Happens twice for each of these things. Can't hear anything with the Dorico playback, but yeah, so that's what's happening. And then the vocals and the drums are all supporting that. Or at least the vocals are doing this, I guess dotted 16th thing. Dun 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 dun, roughly. And the drums are hitting with the yeah, drums are hitting same as this, except that it's kick drums, dun dun dun. And that's a snare on 2 and 4. Yeah, bass is doing the same thing. And this pattern just keeps going this whole section. So the upper guitar changes at that point, but the chugs are the same. And yeah, so what's a little tricky about this is, or maybe I should say what's simple about this relatively is that it's sitting in this 4/4 thing pretty clearly. You have the backbeat and the drums. You have this repeating tresillo guitar thing over top. And half of this guitar pattern is also a really fast tresillo. What's tricky is that it's really fast. So these are 30-second note. It's kind of like this 30-second note groove in comparison to the guitar thing. I mean, it probably makes more sense to hear this twice as fast to notate everything up a level. So call all the 16th notes 8th notes, call the 30-second notes 16th notes, etc. But yeah, it's a little tricky because there's this rhythm here. The first half of the chugs rhythm is not familiar, and it seems like you get, so it's this one is essentially 3 + 2 + 3 when we're much more used to 3 + 3 + 2. So as opposed to and I think that's the gist for a lot of their stuff. Is it's very fast grooves, but pretty often fit within these more familiar things, and then also in the context, of course, of this timbral chaos with what they're doing with the guitars. But yeah, super fun. Definitely will have a dedicated Frontier riff analysis video in sometime in the spring or winter, spring. My next round of things, scripts to write. Moving on, we have the first of 2 requests from the Contortionist, and you all will be very happy because one of the last videos I'm doing that I've already written a script for is about the Contortionist, but not about either of these songs. So the first request, the one I'm going to do today, is from the track Clairvoyant from the album Clairvoyant, which I'm sure someone has tabbed. So I'm going to look at that instead of putting a bunch of time into trying to transcribe this myself, especially because it seems like this comes from an official release. Let's look at this. And the question is about harmony in this one. So the thing starting at around a minute in. Here, let's listen to it first and then look at the tab. So that's pretty fun. So it starts in the bass. There's no bass tab of this in here, but that's fine. I can just do the part with the guitar. Cool. So maybe we can just do some old-fashioned music theory score analysis with this. I'm just going to mark stuff up on here. So the question is about the extent to which this is a 12-tone kind of thing. It certainly sounds pretty angular melodically, harmonically. But let's see, and this is kind of a way to show what the process for deciding how to talk about something like that is, so I'm just going to go pitch by pitch. See, first thing to do is to see what the aggregate of everything is. And that involves first just going through and getting all of the pitches. Yeah, so the staff notation is at sounding pitch, which Guitar Pro doesn't always do. So we have F. I don't know why, because it doesn't really matter. Call that G flat, A flat. This is probably slower than anyone needs to, but in set theory, which is what we use to talk about music that isn't traditionally tonal, and it can be useful for a lot of stuff in tonal music too. But we assign each pitch in the chromatic scale a number. So C is 0, C sharp is 1, D equals 2, etc. So doing that for these, we have, I'm just going to write this kind of in order. We have, or I guess I'll just write it next to each of these. We have, I'll do it in a different color though. 5, 6, I was interrupted by ambient noise while I was talking about this, but so I just put the corresponding number next to each of these, and we can see that it does in fact contain the aggregate. So that's step one for deciding if something is like 12 tony or atonal. Although those aren't like binary definitions, right? There's kind of shades of how strictly something is 12 tone, and that's not always going to be the same thing as if something sounds 12 tone. But as a start, we have all of the pitches of the chromatic scale, right? We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's step one. We have completed the aggregate, which is the way of saying that this passage contains all 12 pitches. However, there's some other stuff that would maybe make it sound more atonal. For example, the thing is here we have some of these pitches, and I'll put squares, are duplicates. So that would maybe make it seem, if we were just listening statistically, which there's evidence that we do actually listen pretty statistically, we have a little more weight for these pitches. So G flat or F sharp, because we get 2 of those, and especially, actually I didn't even count these repetitions, but we get that twice here, and then we get A flat twice, we get that again later in the riff, etc. So maybe we hear those as a little more emphasized. I don't know, probably not. I think it really does sound kind of 12 tony. The other way to think about this would be, instead of just like analyzing the whole all 6 of these measures as like one thing, we can think about how stuff changes. I hear like a kind of different harmonic world in each of these. So this is a good example of something that might be kind of atonal, but it is not really dissonant, because we don't have dissonant intervals at the same time. The only things that we have stacked are perfect fourths. So these, remember, it's in drop D, which is why it's not on the same fret like it would be in standard tuning for a perfect fourth. And so it's like all perfect fourths in here. Yeah, so it can be atonal without being dissonant, and that's something I kind of was getting into in my last video. And also there's this thing where we're kind of shifting sonic worlds. I think the way that I hear this, and this isn't perfectly accurate, but I hear this kind of like as whole tone fragments. So we get one whole tone scale or fragment here, although the upper notes of the fourths don't work in with that. And then we switch to this other whole tone fragment thing here. And I think I hear that because there's all this motion by major third, right? So that's a major third, that's a major third. It's kind of like the giant steps changes if you have played jazz at all, where it's the system of things moving by major thirds to flesh out an augmented chord, but also to get all of the pitches of the chromatic scale. Yeah, so I would say this is, if I were gonna like give this one kind of theoretical thing based on my 20 minutes looking at it, I'd say this is 12 tone ish with a shifting augmented whole tone character. Yeah, so there's some pretty dry harmonic analysis, but I think that's good for this riff, for this video. And like I said, I've got some more Contortionist stuff in the requests for today, and my next or one of my next riff analysis videos will be about them. All right, moving on. Those were 4 riffs that took me a very long time, and they were all riffs from bands that I knew pretty well already. The next 2 are from bands that I know a lot less well. So this next one is from the song "The Frame" by Oceansize. So this is going to be this is a question about the meter, my favorite type of question, at the part at 318. Question about like 5/8 and 6/8. And what is the proper way to think about rhythmic structure? Well, first, be careful of anyone who says that something is the proper way, because there is often, especially in stuff that's even moderately complex, there is often more than one way to feel something, and that's kind of what's interesting. That's kind of the whole point. Yeah, but with that in mind, let's think about this and see if we can find a simple way that jumps out to me. 318. Oh, this question's about polymeter. This question's about feeling both at the same time. Okay, that's a little more complicated. Let's listen again. So I guess this time what I'm going to do when I listen is I'm going to try counting. I'm going to try 5 and see how that does for me. How that lines up with stuff. Yeah, that's interesting. So the thing is that they both seem to work pretty well. And the way I'm gonna show this is by having a second drum set, and I'm going to have one in, I'll say, 5/8 works, 6/8, and then what do? I do. There we go. Look at that. That's another thing. I feel like a lot of times this video feels like an ad for Dorico, but this is one way to make life a whole lot easier, and accurately show these things. So one thing I know for sure is that there's a kick drum on all of these things. Let's do 6 and see what happens when because that's, if you have 5 and 6, it's going to take 6 measures of this to have, so the lowest common factor is 30 eighth notes. So after 6 measures of the 5/8 or 5 measures of the 6/8, they're going to line up again. So let's see what happens there. I know that there's a kick on all of the downbeats of the 5/8. Let's see if the snare thing. So I think it's 3 and 5 is where the snare is, but let's see if that happens on all of these measures. Okay, so that doesn't actually keep up for that long. Let's just do this measure by measure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then, yeah, actually, let me see. Let's listen for the kick on the downbeats of the 6 measure. Let's see what that's like. Yep, so there's a kick on all of those downbeats. And then what else we got? So now I'm trying to listen for snare in relation to the 6/4, I think. Or 6/8. So that's not staying put either. Might just have to do this brute force way, so to speak. So 1 measure at a time, just to get everything down. Oh, sorry, this is actually wrong. So we've got something on 4, 3. Actually, that's a 16th note. Okay. Yeah, so here's the first time through, that's right, or the first 2 times through, and then, I mean, there's a slight difference that you get. I think you get the 16th note thing here on the second time, but then does it change? No, it stays the same third time. So there's 3 times through like this. So these are the hits. The cymbals are accenting some of these downbeats. The question now is how to understand these snare hits in relation to everything else. It doesn't seem like there's a simple way. It doesn't seem like it's just playing the accents from 5/8 and 6/8 at the same time, right? Because that would be, you'd expect for that you'd have a snare hit on in the 6/8 on beat 4, right? Unless it's 3/4, in which case maybe 1 and 2 and 3. So snare hits on the 3rd and 5th, 8th notes, which maybe is actually what we have. Maybe it's less of a 6/8 thing and more of a 3/4 thing. The difference being that 6/8 would be 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. So 2 separate beats versus 3 separate beats. Let's see what this looks like if we just copy these snare hits to here. So all I'm doing is copying the snare hits from the 5/8 part into the 6/8 measure or 6/8 line to see what they look like. So let's see, 1 2 3, not too bad. 1 2, and then on the and of 3, 1 2, the 16th note before 3, 1 not on 2, and then 3 1, and then on the off beats. Yeah, so this is it's kind of tricky, right? I think the way that I would talk about this is as emphasizing the 5/8 and the 3/4 differently at different points. So like these first snare hits, I think the 1 3 5 thing for the 5/8, that's a pretty standard thing. So this first one, these snare hits are shared by both meters. In the second one, obviously this kick belongs just to the 5/8. It doesn't really do anything in the 3/4. And this kick belongs to the 3/4 because it's not really making sense in the 5/8. These hits don't really make that much sense in the 5/8. So I'm going to say these are part of this 1 2 3 thing here. But then you get to ones like this that don't. I mean, maybe you can think of this as kind of like a fill for the 3/4. It's like a turnaround thing. Then you have 1 2. This part really, maybe another turnaround. Yeah, this kind of gets to the point. I mean, this makes sense in the these make sense in the 5/8. Yeah, so if we're saying like the quintessential thing here is 1 3 5. So if there are 5/8 notes, the standard thing based on this for the 5/8 is you get kick on 1 and snare on 3 and 5. And the standard thing for this is 1 3 and 5. Right. So the standard pattern for the two of them is kind of the same, except the difference is that this measure ends right after that. The other one keeps going. Yeah, it's like at various points. So the first time they both line up, we're satisfying both of these at the same time because they're starting in phase. But then as they drift relative to each other, we kind of just pick one of these to highlight, and then there's some other kind of ornament things like this in there. So like this is part of the 3 for the 5/8. It's the 3rd 8th note of the 5/8 measure, so that makes sense there, even though it doesn't make any sense in the 6 in the 3/4 measure. This is the 5th 8th note of the 5/8, so that makes sense here, but it doesn't make sense in the 3/4. This satisfies both of them. Again, And these are, again, pretty clearly just for the 5/8. Yeah, and then the kicks are kind of the more obvious thing because you get kicks on both the 5/8 downbeats and the 3/4 downbeats every time, even though they only make sense together in the first measure. Yeah, so I maybe that cleared something up or helped with thing. Although it seems like that's roughly where the person who asked about this was at conceptually when they submitted the question. But yeah, pretty cool. Very subtle thing. It's not flashy, not fast or anything, but still pretty tricky. Yeah, so there is that, and then we're just going to do one more riff for this video, then I'll do the rest as I said at the beginning, but I'll do the rest of the requests that I got in the next video. Okay, this one is about Rolo Tomassi. Let's listen to the section. It's about harmony. Very cool, very heavy. So the first thing that I hear so I'm looking at, somebody has tabbed this out. I think I'll see if I see any problems with the tab, but it's probably good. This isn't a super tricky thing to get the notes, I don't think. But it is an additive process thing. So, right, we get this descending thing. First time it's like this. Second time it's longer. Then we get the first shorter version again. Then we get a much longer version here. So I think that what I would do is there's probably a reason for the 6/4, but if I were going to notate this, I would do it like this. I'm gonna put this into. So I know the question was about harmony, but gotta talk about form and rhythm. That's my stuff. So I'm just gonna real quick rebar this, renotate it. I'm just copying the notes, but I'm going to put this. I'm going to simplify the texture a little bit and change the barring. Okay, so that's the idea with that. So we get, if I were going to do this in the kind of common thing, A, so A is this plus this, B is this plus the longer one, then we get A again, right? So that's 3 plus 6 thing, and then we get C, this last one, which is the longest one yet. So A, B, A, C, additive metric process. These are all over the place, but yeah, can help make sense of this. So what's happening harmonically though is, so basically it's diminished seventh chord is the gist of it, right? So E flat, C, and then the F is an approach tone to this thing, this lower thing. So the main riff is C, chromatic upper neighbor to E, E, E. So this minor sixth, with this extra half step above the bass note here. So that's that. And then here we have a diminished seventh chord where we're starting to get this diminished seventh chord, where again we have the same idea, except now it's a lower chromatic neighbor here, going up E flat, overshoots down to B, but corrects up to C. And that is the leaping off point to go down to E. So down the perfect fifth, down to E. Then we get the same C, C, F, E thing again. And now I'm gonna make this E flat just to make it easier to see the diminished seventh chord. But now this is just a diminished seventh chord, right? So all minor thirds. So that's a major sixth, which is the same thing as a minor third, an inverted minor third, minor third, minor third, and back to this main thing. So this is just straightforward diminished seventh chord, one of the symmetrical chords, super characteristic sound in mathcore. You're definitely right about that. All these minor thirds, major sixths, and then tritones if you go between. And it is this cool pattern where it's going down a minor third, and then it could just keep going down a minor third, but instead it goes up the octave. So it's up a major sixth, down a minor third, down a minor third, down a minor third. Cool. And then back to this thing again. And then we get the first version again. So with that approach tone, the lower chromatic incomplete neighbor. And then this last one, so same diminished thing on the way up. And then we start going up. So this is still all part of that same C diminished seventh chord. So C, E flat, F sharp, or G flat, A. And then we get an approach tone to the E flat. So this is the same sort of thing that happened before. So instead of going straight down to E flat, the tritone, we go a half step too low. And we jump in here. I mean, we could think of this as an approach tone displaced by an octave to the C. We can think of this as acting as part of like a power chord leading tone going to the C. Yeah, that's the idea. So that was the kind of like caricature of what people think music theory is, which is just like looking at a bunch of notes and saying the names that we have for them, which is useful, a good starting point. I think what's cool is this, like the person who suggested this mentioned, the kind of paradoxical feeling thing of going constantly down minor thirds, but shifting up in octave space, right? So E flat, C, A, this is the same thing as going down to here. So you can imagine that the thing just keeps going like this. Well, I'll do this. But instead, what happens is we go down, and then we shift these two up an octave to here, and then we keep going down, and we shift this one up an octave, or up another octave from where the other one was. So, yeah, I hope that said something interesting about this. Yeah, this rebarring to show the additive metrical thing. and the talking a little bit about this, the harmonic logic here, where it's, you know, preparing stuff by with approach tones, incomplete chromatic neighbors, the diminished seventh chord. Yeah, if you haven't messed around with diminished seventh chords, definitely worth it. And the other way to think about this actually that might be helpful is to think of this not just as a diminished chord. So for this part, especially, that doesn't seem to fit. Instead of a diminished chord, these are all part of the diminished scale, so the half whole scale. So instead of just being the diminished seventh chord, which would be C, E flat, F sharp, A, instead of just that, we add we include the pitch a half step lower than each of these. So that would be B, D, F natural, and I guess we'll call it G sharp. So instead of just this, we have so this is all fitting within that scale, at least. So yeah, another way of thinking about it, using this half whole scale, which is super cool for a lot of things. If you ever have here, I'll leave you with one last thing. If you ever have a dominant chord, start the half whole scale on the root of that. So if we had a B dominant seventh chord, play some stuff in this scale over it, get some cool altered dominant sounds. Yeah, my phone's about to die. Thank you for watching. Thank you for submitting riffs, and I will be back with the other half of the submissions in another video, either next week or the week after. I might do another riff analysis video in between, which might have something to do with my shirt. So thank you all. Thank you so much to my patrons for supporting. Thank you for everyone for watching. It was very nice to meet you all. And yeah, see ya.